Hi, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for stopping by. This week's video, I'm going to cast this piece of stabilized maple burl in some resin, and we're going to make a vase out of it. So I made a mold. I just used some 3/4 inch plywood as a little cradle to hold things, and then I used 1/4 inch high density polyethylene, which I hot melt glued the joints on both sides, inside and outside, and I've chamfered the edges of the burl off so that they'll fit tight up against the edge. I'll spray my mold. Alright, so off camera, I measured this space with rice. So I know what volume of resin I need to use, and I've marked it on these two containers. All right, it's good. All right, now I'm going to make this in red. So I'm going to use Illuminate red dye, and I'm going to use Caster's Choice Blood Red and Caster's Choice Black Pearl. And I'm going to put a little tint into these before I mix them together. Actually, that's not a good idea. I'm not going to have enough room to mix those that way, so I'm going to put them together now. Alright, so we're all mixed up good now. What I want to do is I'm going to separate the black from the red. So I'm going to dump some of the resin into this container. Not a ton, just some. And that's going to get the black powder. So now we're going to put the red in this one. Now I'm going to put some black in here. I'm going to be real careful with this one. Alright, now I'm just going to take this stick, I'm just going to swirl that a little bit. All the way to the bottom. So I made this to sit over the edge, and all that's going to do is that's going to put some weight. I'm going to set a weight on top of it once it's in the pressure pot, and that's just going to hold down on the burl so the burl doesn't float up on me. So this piece is too long to fit down into my pressure pot on its side. So it's sitting flat like it is on the table. I can't fit that in there. And I never considered running into this issue. And I watched a video from Doug at Fleet's Woodshop last week, and I'll put a link to Doug's site in the description. You can check it out to that particular video. And he has his pressure pots mounted on a wall horizontally like this so that you can take much more depth. So it was a great idea, one that I didn't even know that I was going to need, but I just saw the video last week. It just came out last week and I'm doing it today. So it's, thanks Doug. I'm going to have to go cut the angle off of this a little bit because I didn't test it with this one. Like modifications on the fly. Alrighty, that one go in there now, and I don't need to put weight on it because it can't come up. It's wedged, so that's perfect. Unplanned, but perfect. Okay, so we left this in overnight. I'm just going to take this mold apart and see how things look. Alright, that's going to be nice and red. Looks like there's a few little bubbles right under the surface here, but that doesn't seem possible. The rest of it looks good. Good thing is that it is actually a little bit higher than it is wide, and so I'll be taking a little slab off this top, which is the narrow part of the burl anyhow. And I don't think those are actual bubbles. I think it's just the way the resin cured. So we'll get this chucked up and we'll see how it looks. I've taken the blank to the table saw and I cut the corners off just to save a little bit of turning. And I did take that extra width off on the table saw. And it turns out that they were not bubbles. It was just the way that the colors in the resin had cured made it look that way. So I'm going to start on this with a negative rake cutter. It's an Easy Wood Tools roughing tool. And you'll see that the resin, when it's being cut, comes off in little fluffies, and the actual stabilized burl just comes off in powder. So I switched to a traditional bowl gouge here now, and it removes material much more quickly than the carbide cutter does. And it does cut the burl wood really well. You risk getting some chip out when you get into the resin. So I'm just going to keep going back and forth between the two here. But while I've got some diameter to work with, I'll remove some material more quickly with this chisel. This end of the blank is actually going to be the bottom of the vase, so I'm going to turn a tenon on it now so I can mount it in a forward jaw chuck. Now that the tenon is done, I can take it out from between centers. I can remove the spur center and put on the forward jaw chuck. Then it's just a matter of placing it in the jaws, making sure that it's in good and tight, and tightening the chuck up with this Allen key. I'm bringing the tailstock up for a little added support, making sure everything's good and tight. When you're concentrating on these things, it's easy to forget there's a camera over top of your head. Get your head stuck in the way. And then you remember and pop your head back out of the way for a few minutes, and I'm sure it'll happen again. You have to stop a lot when you turn resin to get the resin off of you and off your piece so you can see what you're doing. I thought I'd shoot this angle for a few minutes just to give you an idea of what kind of a mess it actually is. So I have the shape that I want, and I've got to sand it to 600 grit. I'm just going to start with some regular and microfine abrasive paste, and then I'm going to go from 1200 grit up to 2500, and then give it 2 coats of Hampshire Sheen High Gloss. I have my steady rest on the lathe now and got some tape around the piece so that I don't mark the finish that I just put on it. And I'm just going to bore the inside out to start with a Forstner bit. I have a piece of tape on the shaft of that extension so I know how deep that I can go. Now I can start to hollow out the inside with a small negative rake carbide cutter. I finished the hollowing off camera and as much as I could. And now I'm just going through my normal sanding and finishing routine here, which is the same as the outside. I carefully removed the tenon off the bottom with the bandsaw and the vertical belt sander. And now I'm just going to put a 1000 grit finish on it with this 2-inch mandrel. And I'm going to sand it concave so that it sits flat. Lastly, I'm going to buff it with some Triple E, which is on this wheel now, and Diamond, which will be the wheel coming up next, the one with the white compound. Thanks for watching, and again I want to thank all the subscribers. I really appreciate it. If you watch this video and you like what you saw, please do consider subscribing. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, give it a thumbs down and let me know why so I can improve. And I'll put some stills up at the end here, and we will see you next time.